and to steer the public away from Hillary Clinton's multi-million-dollar garbage dossier the deep state used in order to spy on Trump's campaign. The fake dossier ultimately sparked the Russian collusion witch hunt. If the dossier wasn't used in order to obtain a FISA warrant, then show the public the FISA apps. On Saturday, the New York Times implied Trump campaign volunteer George Papadopoulos set in motion the Russian collusion investigation, not the Hillary-funded dossier. Papadopoulos was already charged. He wasn't charged with Russian collusion. Papadopoulos was charged with making a false statement to the FBI because talking to Russians is not illegal, yet he's what prompted the Russia investigation? The fake news media is beyond pathetic. Excerpt from the NYT Fake News article. Washington, during a night of heavy drinking at an upscale London bar in May 2016, George Papadopoulos, a young foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign, made a startling revelation to Australia's top diplomat in Britain: Russia had political dirt on Hillary Clinton. About 3 weeks earlier, Mr. Papadopoulos had been told that Moscow had thousands of emails that would embarrass Mrs. Clinton, apparently stolen in an effort to try to damage her campaign. Exactly how much Mr. Papadopoulos said that night at the Kensington wine rooms with the Australian, Alexander Downer, is unclear. But 2 months later, when leaked Democratic emails began appearing online, Australian officials passed the information about Mr. Papadopoulos to their American counterparts, according to 4 current and former American and foreign officials with direct knowledge of the Australians' role. The hacking and the revelation that a member of the Trump campaign may have had inside information about it were driving factors that led the FBI to open an investigation in July 2016 into Russia's attempts to disrupt the election and whether any of President Trump's associates conspired. If Mr. Papadopoulos, who pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI and is now a cooperating witness, was the improbable match that set off a blaze that has consumed the first year of the Trump administration, his saga is also a tale of the Trump campaign in miniature. He was brash, boastful and underqualified, yet he exceeded expectations. And, like the campaign itself, he proved to be a tantalizing target for a Russian influence operation. The information that Mr. Papadopoulos gave to the Australians answers one of the lingering mysteries of the past year: what so alarmed American officials to provoke the FBI to open a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign months before the presidential election? It was not, as Mr. Trump and other politicians have alleged, a dossier compiled by a former British spy hired by a rival campaign. Instead, it was first-hand information from one of America's closest intelligence allies. The New York Times got destroyed within hours of publication. Conservative Treehouse completely broke down their latest Russian conspiracy. Hate to undercut your explosive story on origin of Russia probe. But George Papadopoulos talking in May 2016, is likely about this open and public information from April 2016. 2. Additionally, worth noting, NYT is nowhere in the joint analysis report. Comey, Brennan and Clapper construct, is anything about George Papadopoulos even hinted or alluded to. ABC in Australia is reporting it was Alexander Downer, Australian High Commissioner to UK, who then let counterparts in US know that George Papadopoulos was talking about the Sydney Blue mental hack via Clinton emails. The NYT is also nonsense based on common sense. Papadopoulos was so important that July 15, 2016, Comey opens counterintel investigation into Russian collusion. January 15, 2017, FBI visits Papadopoulos for first time. FBI waited for 6 months to talk to him? 4. The NYT is also nonsense based on common sense. Papadopoulos was so important that July 15, 2016, Comey opens counterintel investigation into Russian collusion. January 15, 2017, FBI visits Papadopoulos for first time. FBI waited for 6 months to talk to him? Rep. Ron DeSantis has asked for Obama-Comey FISA apps to be declassified. As soon as we know what prompted the FISA warrant, we will begin to understand the origin of the Russian collusion witch hunt. The reason why the deep state is fighting the dossier so much is because we all know it is the fruit of a poison tree, as Tom Fitton says. Rep. Ron DeSantis said in a statement. We now know that the so-called Steele dossier was paid for by the Democratic Party in an effort to gin up negative information regarding then-candidate Trump. What the American people deserve to know is whether the information compiled by Steele on the Democrats' dime was used by the Obama administration to obtain approval to conduct surveillance against Trump associates. The FBI has stonewalled producing these documents for months, and their production shouldn't be limited to closed-door viewing by a small number of members of Congress. The Trump administration should immediately declassify all the documents used to obtain surveillance warrants against Trump or his associates. Nice try, New York Times. Certainly that report took some of your precious time to produce. However, we will never stop demanding an investigation into the dossier. The brilliant Byron York of the Washington Examiner asked some pertinent questions that further poked holes in the desperate New York Times article about Papadopoulos. NYT reports George Papadopoulos was a driving factor that led FBI to start Trump-Russia probe in July 2016. Dossier played no role. 1/4.